Nkosi sikeleli Afrika maluphakanyisa uphondo lwayo izwa imithandazo yethu Nkosi sikelela lusapho lwayo murena buluka sitshaba sa Yesu ufedise dintwali matshwenye usibuluke sitshaba sa Yesu sitshaba sa South Africa, South Africa. 80 blofano seyemel, 80 deep defano sie, oro sie vergeftes, var die Glanze antwortet. Sounds the call to come together, and united we shall stand. Let us live and strive for freedom in South Africa, our land.
Good morning to everyone, good evening to everyone, good afternoon to everyone. I'm saying good morning, I'm saying good afternoon because under normal circumstances, we normally get listeners from all over the globe for our show. Once again, this is Mlamli Manala. We are back at it again with the second wave of COVID-19. As we know, today we've invited two guests, which is Zolani Simai, who's actually going to unpack to us into COVID-19 and the second wave and take us through so that we get to understand exactly what we can expect and what we are going through as a country, and possibly some of the things that he actually warned us about as far as the second wave is concerned. We're just waiting on him to actually join us. And we also have today Baba Lovala, who's actually going to bring context in terms of the prophecy and also in terms of the end time and what we are experiencing and what we are going through, and possibly be able to link the two. It's not something new. It's been there, and there are some books that actually speak about this particular cause that we are going through. So for tonight, we are going to have those two guests, Uzolani Simai and Baba Lovala. I'm hoping Usimai asijoine he's not here yet. He's not here yet, and he questioned what are you waiting on? Hope I'm audible enough for
I think you keep on cutting, my leader.
Okay, I keep on cutting there. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let me see how I can improve his sound on my side. Okay. Okay, we've got Ubabalo Studio Setu today, and I'm actually going to bring him in the studio while we're waiting on Uzolani, and I'm hoping into yoba ngaba uZolani will be able to join us very, very soon, so that we can actually continue with our discussion for today. Unomsa, oh God, please intervene. Unomsa pha, unomsa mangaliso, nomchongwana, uthi Thixo ngenelela. Mhlawumbi Babalo, before we start, I think it will be proper for us simbize uThixo nakule imeko sikuyo and invite God to be part and parcel of this particular program. Maybe let's close our eyes. Program komthandazo.
Okay. Our Father in heaven, we come to you this time. I want to thank you for the gift of life which you have given us. We give you all the praise, the glory, the honor, the power, and the blessings for the opportunity you have given us to still be alive and to also have this discussion that we are about to start. All that I'm asking is that you may grant us the gift of the Holy Spirit. May you be with us and bless us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Babalo. Thank you for that prayer. South Africa needs it more than ever. And not only prayer, South Africa also needs to be informed. South Africa needs to know ukuthi uthini kwizinto ezinje, because akathi uThixo uhlwakaza ucwele lakhe engathanga azisa abantu bakhe kwenzela bazozichaza izinto esingena kuzo nenze siphumela kuzo. Mhlawumbi, as a first question on you while we're waiting on our next guest, Babalo, maybe would you please just unpack quick guest Z2, maybe what is really the mark of the beast? We've had quite a number of explanations, a number of things, and also the judge on the other side talking about the mark of the beast in reference to the vaccine and all these other things. Maybe if you can just take us through, the first question would be, what is the mark of the beast, so that we can premise everything from there moving forward, so that we understand exactly what is the mark of the beast.
The mark of the beast is found in the book of Revelations. The book of Revelation has 22 chapters, and the beast is found in the book of Revelation, chapter 30. Now, brief down to the book of Revelation, 13, and the second beast comes out of the earth. Now, the second is on the now about the stood at the end of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon it 10 crowns, and a name of blasphemy. The beast which I saw was like unto a leopard. His feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth is the mouth of, and the dragon ate for it. So this is where the beast is written in John says the significance. Now this the sea, and so this is a message that is coded, and God uses symbols to explain this. I go back when the Bible speaks to a king.
Sorry, yeah, Babalo, I don't know. I keep losing you. I don't know whether it's only me on my side. You cutting. I keep losing you. I'm not sure whether when now you can actually. We're having a problem with this sound where you keep cutting.
Okay, let me do this. How is it now?
Yeah, that's better.
It's better now, ne? All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Daniel says the beast. When the Bible speaks about a beast, Daniel chapter 7, verse 17, we are told that a beast symbolizes a king, and a kingdom, and a king is a kingdom. That's according to verse 23 of the book of Daniel chapter 7. So when John sees a beast coming out of the sea, he sees a kingdom. ascending out of the waters. So since the beast symbolizes something, then the water must also symbolize something. Go to the book of Revelation 17, verse 15. The Bible says, the waters which you saw are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. So the water symbolizes a densely populated area. And this beast must come out of that densely populated area where you have the greatest multitudes or the population of the earth located. Number two, I'm just going to list a few characteristics of this power according to Revelation chapter 13. Is that, I hope that is fine. So the beast is simply, it's okay, ne? It's a kingdom. So now John explains in verse 2 that this kingdom is, this beast is a conglomerate of three other kingdoms. It is a conglomerate of a lion, of a bear, and of a leopard. Now a lion in Bible prophecy represents Babylon, and a bear represents Medo-Persia, the kingdom of Medo-Persia, and then the leopard represents Greece. Now the majority, the vast majority of this kingdom is simply the embodiment of the Greek Empire, because the entire body of the kingdom of this power is the Greek Empire. So it is a mixture of these other kingdoms that have come and that have gone. Now, according to history, Babylon ruled the world from 605 BC to 539 BC. And then after Babylon, you have Medo-Persia, which ruled the world from 538 BC to 331 BC. And then Greece comes into the scene and rules the world from 331 BC to 168 BC. And then out of Greece,
from Daniel.
That's from Daniel.
That's from Daniel.
Yes. So these are these are the chapter which I'm trying to explain in Revelations is correlated to Daniel chapter 7. So that's why I'm using Daniel. It's correlated to the book of Daniel. And then there is a fourth power that the book of Daniel speaks about, and this power is none other than the Roman power. So Rome undergoes, according to the book of Daniel, three main phases. The first phase is when the beast is ruling the kingdom, or the kingdom of Babylon, the kingdom of Rome, that is pagan Rome. Then the second phase, it is when Rome is ruled by the little horn, which is the Roman Catholic papacy. That is the period from 538 BC down to 1798. And then the last phase is a phase when this power will resurrect or resuscitate and come back to rule the entire world. So I believe we are living in that period now where we are waiting for this power to be resurrected. In fact, when John looks at this power, this beast, the Bible says that he saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death. Yeah, so as we continue with this, the Bible continues to say that the dragon or the dragon gives its power, its seat, and great authority to the beast. Now, this beast is ruling with the power, the authority of the dragon. I want us to underline that. Okay. Now, who is the dragon? If you go to Revelation chapter 12, Revelation chapter 12 explains to us who the dragon is. There are two main applications of the dragon according to the book of Revelation chapter 12. The first application is the devil. That's Revelation chapter 12, verse 9. The great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceives the whole world. And then the second or secondary application or interpretation of who the dragon is pagan Rome. You'll find that in Revelation chapter 12, verse 1 to 4, where we are told that the dragon was persecuting the woman which was ready to give birth to a child. And this man-child, we are told, he ascended up to heaven, and he is to rule the nations with a rod of iron. That is none other than Jesus Christ. So the devil used pagan Rome in the time of Christ to persecute Jesus Christ. So now we moving further into the course of history, we are told in Revelation chapter 13 that this dragon or Satan ultimately gives his power and authority and his seat to the beast, which is, I believe, Roman Catholicism. Now, I want to outline another point here, and this is the point. You'll understand why I'm going into this. In verse 2, we are told that this beast is sitting on the throne of the dragon. That is very significant. Now, if you go to Isaiah chapter 14, Isaiah chapter 14 laments or cries about the fall of Lucifer. Lucifer is the angel that God has created in the beginning, in a time that we are not, in that particular time of history. So it is the angel that God has created, and this angel apostatized, and then the name of the angel was changed and became the dragon. All right, so we are told that Lucifer, let me just read that, Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12, the Bible says, how did you fall from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How are you cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. So the devil wanted to establish a throne in heaven. Now there's already a throne in heaven. It's the throne of righteousness, throne of grace, the throne of mercy, the throne of glory. Now the devil wanted to establish a throne that is counter the throne of God. If you go now, okay, like if you go to the book of Psalms, I believe the throne of the devil also has an identity, and it also has its own characteristics, which is what we are dealing with on earth right now. If you go to the book of Psalms, chapter 94, verse 20, the Bible says, shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with you, which frames mischief by a law? So the Bible says there's a throne of iniquity, and this throne of iniquity uses laws to frame mischief. Now, if you do we don't have time to go into this. If you do a thorough study on this throne of iniquity throughout the Old Testament, you will see that the devil has been trying to set up his throne on earth through the system of idolatry. And then he has planted this satanic throne between the human worshiper and the divine, because ultimately what he is looking for is worship. Now, the book of Psalms says he uses this throne to hide mischief. Mischief simply means to do another person injury. Now, there's nothing wrong with laws and precepts and other things. Even the throne of God is founded upon the law. Now, the devil also uses laws in his government to push his own agenda. Now, this throne is called the throne of iniquity. Now, I find it very fascinating. If you read Ezekiel chapter 28, where Ezekiel also laments and he speaks about the devil. He says there in Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 15, he was perfect in his ways in the day that he was created, until iniquity was found in him. So iniquity was in the devil, and the throne of it, and he also wanted to establish the throne of iniquity. Fast forward this to the book of Revelations, and as we are talking about this system of the beast, you also go to the book of 2 Thessalonians. There's you can do a comparative study of Revelation chapter 13 and also 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Paul calls this power the mystery of iniquity. And this mystery of iniquity is, it institutionalizes sin. And sitting in the midst of Christendom, it institutionalizes sin. Basically, that's what Paul is saying there. You do a comparative study of Revelation 13 and also 2 Thessalonians, you will see this. And then ultimately, the beast, as I wrap it up, the beast is finally wounded, according to the book of Revelation chapter 13. And then there's another beast that comes out of the earth. Now we have come to understand that this beast is referring to the United States of America. And then there are certain movements which will be pushed according to that prophecy, which will give power back to that beast. And if you read from Revelation chapter 13, one of the things that I'll mention there is the rise of this charismatic Pentecostal movement within America. And the power which will be executed in these churches will be used to deceive the world. And then secondly, we are told that this beast will use force, military force, to force people to worship the image of the beast, which will be set up. And then ultimately force people using economic power to receive the mark of the beast. Now, there are three things, as I close, that I want us to take note of in that part of the book of Revelations, chapter 13, from verse 11 to verse 18. There is what we call the image of the beast. There is what we call the mark of the beast. There is what we call the number of the beast. These are different things.
Okay.
Yeah, these are different things. I've already explained who the beast is, because you can't talk about the mark of the beast unless you understand the beast. You can't talk about the image of the beast unless you understand the beast itself. And you also can't talk about 666 until you talk or identify this beast, because the Bible says that 666, according to verse 18 and verse 17, it is the number of a man. And this man or this power has already been explained in these chapters. So
Okay.
I think I'll
Tell me
I'll end just now.
before I go to Zolani, maybe it will be proper also on the three elements that you've mentioned, the number of the beast. Would you please just bring it home now? Is there any correlations with what we are going through in terms of COVID-19 pandemic and one of the elements that you've mentioned, or maybe all those elements or two of those elements? Are there any correlation with what's happening with COVID-19 and also either the mark or the number or anything related to the beast?
All right. Okay, let me start with the mark of the beast. I want us to be clear. The mark of the beast, it is not some microchip. It is also not a vaccine. It is not also not a barcode which will be put on people's foreheads, also on people's right hand. The mark of the beast is the authority of the beast, which has to do with Sunday worship. So that's according to the studies which I've done, and that's the Adventist interpretation also of that. Yeah, so the mark of the beast is the enforcement of Sunday worship. Now, no one has the mark of the beast today. All right, let me talk about the image of the beast as well. The image of the beast, for us to talk about the image of the beast, you must look at, it's like an image, it's like a mirror. It's like when you're looking at yourself at the mirror. It's a reflection of this beast. So the genetic makeup of this beast is the union of church and state. This beast has ecclesiastical power, ecclesiastical authority, because the Bible says it is worshipped by the world. And then the second point is that it has political power or political authority, and maybe, yeah, political authority, and then it uses that to control, of course, the economy. And then the last point is 666. 666, I know there are many interpretations on this 666. Others are saying it is the number of Nelson Mandela, because Nelson Mandela, apparently, his jail number was 46664. Therefore, he is 666 because also he was arrested and he was there in what's his place, Robben Island, for 27 years. Therefore, he is 666. He is the beast, and also 666 belongs to him. No, that can't be correct. Theologically, that can't be correct. Coming to the issue of vaccines and the sentiments which were expressed by the Chief Justice, I disagree with the Chief Justice on this particular point of vaccines and 666. I don't see how 666 will be infused in the genes of people through vaccines. I don't see, because that number, okay, yeah, let me just take it slowly a bit. I don't see how that will be infused in the genes of the people. So I disagree with him on that. But I understand from which angle he is coming from. Because remember, from a theological side, the Chief Justice uses what we call, there are three types of interpretations when it comes to prophecy. There's what we call preterism, there's what we call futurism, and then there's what we call a historical method of interpreting a prophecy. Now, the method that I believe in is the historical one, the last one. Now, the Chief Justice, with many other evangelicals, they believe in the method, this theological method called futurism. Basically, with futurism, they put everything to the future. Even the Antichrist, the beast is something which is to be fulfilled in the future. They also talk about the 7 years of tribulation. They also talk about the secret rapture. And they also talk about the new world order, the one world government. That's the futurist interpretation of the Bible. I'm not saying there won't be a new world order. I'm not saying also it has nothing to do with last day events. But I'm just explaining their viewpoint. And then the last point is that this showdown, which will happen in the Middle East, which will involve Israel. That's why there's so much patriotism with the state of Israel. And there are attempts and also Bible interpretations to explain that the temple will be rebuilt, and then somehow this Antichrist will sit in this temple. Yeah, that's the futurist interpretation. And so that's where the 666, according to the Chief Justice, emanates from. There are many other scholars now within the evangelical world who hold this viewpoint. So from the Adventist or historical interpretation of Bible prophecy, I disagree with that, with their interpretation. Of course, we don't have time to unpack this to explain why I disagree with them.
Yeah. No. I'm gonna go to Zolani. Before I want you when I come back maybe to think about this particular question. You've mentioned that also they've got political power. Do you think also you're not gonna answer this one now, but think about it. They can use their political power and political will to advance some other issues in terms of principles of the Bible, and can the beast also uses political power and political will to advance other things that are related in terms of state of Esikuso currently. Zolani, welcome to the show, and welcome to our listeners. As you know, we've got global listeners. It's the morning on the other side, it's the afternoon on the other side. We just want to welcome you. Maybe you caught us maybe in the middle of our discussion. Vaccines in South Africa. Maybe before we even go there, I want to know, Zolani, what are we talking about when we talk about the second wave? You spoke about this thing from the first wave, and some of us could not fathom, could not understand. We did not understand that, you know. Now we are in that situation now, and it looks like Izinto as it doubled than before. And these are the things that you mentioned that you are worried about this. As much as we are going through this first wave at that time, there's a second wave coming. You know, you were clear about it. So I just want to know, what does it mean? Then the second, does this mean if Bangaba Bendines glasses, as glasses must be double, okay, I was still talking about the same glasses, but the difference is that now we are just careless as human beings. Okay, according to Nina scientists, you can't or we're talking about the different thing, or we're still talking about the same virus you are talking about, the first wave. What is second wave?
Thanks, Mla, and thanks to Babalo, and also greeting to the viewers and listeners. The second wave, Mla, is still the same virus. You can't put a finger to say this is why it becomes more dangerous, but it's the same virus. For example, I was chatting with someone to say the most thing that will devastate me is to make it for the first wave, meaning to escape infection when we thought the virus has subsided, only to be hit the second time. And this time around, I might, who knows if I might make it, so that's my fear. But the bottom line is, it's the same coronavirus. It hasn't mutated. Nothing has been added.
Sorry,
yes.
There's an echo on your side. Do you have any other gadget lying around up? And maybe if you can just or because there's an echo on your side.
Injani ngoku?
How can you tell me?
Ibuza injani ngoku? Echo.
Yeah, in
So the second wave, when I'm like, it's the same virus. Nothing has changed. But somewhere, somehow, it hits differently. And as I said, you can't put a finger to say, this is the reason why it hits harder. So yes, it's the same virus.
Yeah.
Nothing has
just,
changed.
I'm not sure it sounds. It sounds there's an echo on your side. It's still there. I'm not sure what is it that we can do to improve your sound. Maybe if you've got your phone or any other Nasika, maybe we beg when you're in room phone or just outside in Nasika.
Yeah.
If
Yes.
also you created what's this thing on Facebook, if you created a watch party, that might be the reason. So maybe you take that one package. We beg when you can.
No, I didn't create watch party.
I wonder what's the problem. And
maybe can you try, my leader, can you try maybe to mute? You can mute my. Can you mute my?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you able to mute from your side? Babalo, can mute here from your side. I'm not sure what's happening. What happened now? I'm not sure what happened, but we've lost to Babalo. Okay, let's continue. ZS,
so
let's continue.
Just to continue, is to say it's the same virus, right? And nothing has changed. But somehow, this time around, when it's second wave, it hits harder. Do you still have the echo?
Yes, we still have the echo. Babalo, can't you mute maybe from your side?
I'm trying.
We are called to miss a pauti le echo ka 666 le ibetu zolan. Dile echo ka 666 le ibetu zolan. Always, Mr. Vala, great to listen to you always. Utuli, uthi kambuze nyani bhuti yo hayi ngathi engeziwe ngoku. And then ithi ke ngoku sino yena uthi yes, we still have the echo on our side. Maybe what we can do when ZS, if you don't mind, if you just log out and then log back again.
Leave the meeting. Okay.
Yeah, leave the meeting and then come back again.
Sure.
Babalo, let's go back to the quick question here to Eti. Do you think Ukuti there is a political agenda from the B side? I know you explained Ukuti the 666 has got nothing to do, and the chip have got nothing to do with the virus. As on those you're not talking about the same thing. But do you think is there a political agenda to advance this? Either would you say that's the case at the moment, and that's our ban phone line?
I would say yes, my leader, there is a political agenda, and it's driven by profit. Number one, I would say there is a political agenda, and I wouldn't like, there is a political agenda, but my greatest fear at this point with this vaccine, this is my greatest fear from where I'm sitting. My fear is that the powers that the book of Revelation speaks about will hijack this pandemic to push its own agenda. Let me explain what I mean. For example, this COVID-19 vaccine, for example, I just want to check. There's something I wrote earlier. I just want to read this quickly. There is something I wrote here. It can be used to control people, number one. Number two, ipinalendo ngoku.
While you're
Alright,
looking
I
at it,
lost it.
also,
I lost it.
Uti on that side, while you are at Mhlambi, if you can be able to be specific, Uti, political agenda driven by who, Mhlambi, so that he gets he or she gets context. If you are saying there is a political agenda, Mhlambi, the political agenda, who's driving it?
As I mentioned, it's driven by profit, monopoly capital, the pharmaceutical industry. Definitely, they are going to make a lot of money out of this, so they have to drive it. Most of the billionaires we are having in the world today, they make their billions most of the time under situations of crises. If not make a crisis, a disaster like war, famine, things like that, then they make money. This is well documented in history books. Yeah, so this is what I was looking for in the Fuman. My major concern with this, remember the book of Revelation speaks about it has to do with our livelihoods. That is the mark of the beast. Ultimately, when it's passed or when it's enforced, people won't be able to buy or sell. That's the economic aspect. So our economic activity will be limited according to that prophecy. Now, my fear here is that the Sunday movement is likely to hijack this agenda. This is why I'm saying it. The first places, according to the articles I was reading yesterday and today, one of the places that are listed where this vaccine might be made available, like where the inoculation with this vaccine might be made mandatory. It's in the workplace, number one. Number two, these are possibilities that for you to attend sports events, you must have been inoculated. And also, maybe finding a place or a seat in a restaurant, you might be forced to be inoculated. That's my greatest fear. And then the other aspect, the issue of buying and selling. What if now, according to my belief or religious convictions, I am against vaccines? Are you also going to make it mandatory? Are you going to force me to have it in the workplace? So these are questions I'm also having. Are you going to force me to have it in the workplace? It seems to me that where we are heading, the vaccines will be made a moral issue, not just a medical issue, but a moral issue. What is the other thing? Currently, as it stands, I was looking at the legislative framework that governs the issuing and also the issuing of vaccines in South Africa, and also, where the issuing of vaccines that are mandatory. As it stands, we don't really have a legislative framework that forces people to be vaccinated, number one. The only legal framework we have, it concerns the yellow fever vaccination. That is for people that are coming from these yellow fever stricken countries such as Burundi, Cameroon, that is Central African Republic, and also DRC, Nigeria, Rwanda, Senegal, Sierra Leone, Sudan, Togo. So these people that are traveling from those places, they are forced to be vaccinated, and they must produce that yellow fever vaccine certificate. Then they will be allowed to stay in South Africa. And then if they don't have that certificate, then they must be quarantined for a period of 6 days, if I'm not mistaken. Then if they still fail to produce that certificate, then they must be deported back to their countries. So that's the only legal framework that is in place currently. So they will have to develop something for COVID-19, which I believe they might. I'm not saying it will happen. They might develop something of that nature where they say people must be forcefully vaccinated. It is mandatory. People must be vaccinated in various sectors of society, maybe the workplace, sports events, etc. And then lastly,
what makes it wrong? is there anything wrong about being vaccinated? What makes it even wrong? Because remember, we are vaccinated for flu. We are vaccinated. There's quite a lot of vaccination that is happening. Yellow fever, yes, even Brazil is included. If you travel to Brazil, you have to inject them. But what is there anything wrong with being vaccinated from a Christian point of view? With to be specific, the virus we're talking about, which is the COVID-19 virus, is there anything wrong with that?
Constitutionally, all right, vaccination must be by choice from where I'm sitting. And also, constitutionally speaking, let me just read this section here. Section 12, subsection 2 of the Constitution makes it clear that everyone has a right to bodily and psychological integrity. And then this includes, amongst other things, security in and control over one's body. So I can't be forced, you can't force me according to the Constitution to be vaccinated. That's according to the Constitution. And then from a religious standpoint, it challenges or it infringes on what we call liberty of conscience. You must allow me to make a decision based on my convictions. Allow me to choose, allow me to exercise my freedom of choice, which I believe the Constitution of South Africa protects that. So once it becomes mandatory, that's why I have a problem with it. But if you make it available and people must choose, I'm fine with that. But if once you force people, that's when it becomes a problem.
Okay, I think we're still gonna go deeper. We will need you to. I think the corner points up corner. You are trading softly. Maybe you're just trying to be politically correct. So let's see what we can do. Zolan, he's clear. There is also a political power and a political will in this whole thing in terms of advancing the vaccine. So you were still taking us through. Started. I know, Guti, you've got some few that you would like to sort of comment or ask on the other side. But Kaubusima will come there. Abantu wants to know first in Dobangaba. You couldn't get away on that later from Leo Carl. You were still there.
Now, that's where I was. I'm hoping this time around is better.
We still have, but yeah, let's continue.
Hence, I was saying there is nothing added. It is the same virus that attacks your ACE2 receptors. It hasn't changed, but somehow, and you can't put a finger on it, it tends to hit harder when it hits the second time. And as I've said, currently there's no scientific explanation as to why the second wave tends to be harder. But it is the same virus. There is no mutation. The same virus that hit China in December, it is the same virus that comes back in South Africa in December. So that's basically the second wave. There's no difference. There's no addition.
Yeah. So okay. Now we've got that one loud and clear. Now, in terms of vaccines, can you just take us through maybe 2 or 3 vaccines that are sort of readily available globally? And in terms of South African status at the moment, how far are we in terms of producing our own vaccine? And take into consideration the fact that if maybe you've got that information for us, who is behind all these vaccines, so that we can link this together with Umhlobo wethu Babalo and see ukuthi apha ezantsi singaphuma nantoni na.
Okay. No, thanks, Mna. Let's start this way. Research works this way. We don't have money, right? Mm-hmm. These research are extremely expensive. An experiment can cost, one experiment can run into,
just mute your mic, Babal.
One experiment can run into hundreds of thousands of rands. So one, you need someone who has a deeper pocket to throw in money there, right? And it happens that in the world, there are few who have such deep pockets, number one. And having such deep pockets, they are generous. Number three, they are interested in human health. And I would mention one, and that's Bill Gates, right? But when you fund someone, or when you take money to your pocket and say, go research, I take your money and then tell you that you have no influence in what I do. Thank you for your money, but you are not going to instruct me on what to do. Those are the ethics of donation. There we must agree there and there, Wuti. You give me your money, but I maintain my independence. Correct? So in other words, those who fund people like Bill Gates, they have no say. They don't even know how the experiments work. All they know is the money they get. Sorry, the money they give, but that's just passing. So just to clear things, now let's go back to the science of it. The ones that have gotten deep into them, there are many vaccines that are on trial. Now, before I get to the vaccine, I think it's important for people to understand there are stages of vaccine development. You start it in the lab, you start it in rats. There you see in rats that, okay, it's promising. From rats, you move on to monkeys. Now, the reason for that, rats, monkeys, genetically, they are similar to human beings. And metabolically, they are similar to human beings. Now, you move on to monkeys. There you test the vaccine that you have developed in the lab. You test it in the monkeys. And then you observe from the monkeys how they react. Number one, you observe whether this vaccine can produce or can stimulate antibodies. And then you check what is the reaction of this vaccine on the monkey. Does it make the monkeys to be sick? That's fine. Then you move on now to humans. You take a small number of humans, let's say 5,000. You test that vaccine on those humans. You test all the elements. After you inject, you say, okay, after 7 days, let's go and check the antibodies, the amount of antibodies produced. Say, okay, and then you move on to say, now we are going to check the toxicity or the immunogenicity of the vaccine. What are the side effects of this vaccine? The reason you are doing it to a small number because you don't want to see disaster on big numbers. Once you see that it succeeds, then you move on to another phase, which might be the last phase, where now you say the results we got from phase 2 are promising, but we want a bigger number because if you have a small number, it can be deceiving in terms of statistics. So you need a bigger number. Like, for example, you go 50,000, you go 100,000, you get that. From there, you check the same things to say, of these people, 100,000, let's check their antibodies. And let's also check the side effects. Once you see the side effects are less or close to zero, then you weigh in the options to say it means the vaccine is safe for administering. Now, I'm saying this thing because there are so many things that are said, which I'm hoping to tackle them. Now, it's phase 1. Those are called clinical trials. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Phase 3 is the final one where you have a bigger number. Then you move on now to the actual distribution of the vaccine, because now phase 3 tells you that the percentage of the efficacy of this vaccine, how well does it work? Because you have tested the immunogenicity or the toxicity already, and you have identified that no, it is not toxic. Then you move on. Because remember, the toxicity, you also tested it on monkeys, right? Then you move on. So now, the 3 that have gone through these stages, one is one from a company in England, UK, called AstraZeneca. That one has an efficacy of 70%, meaning when they inject you, right, that vaccine works so well that it will protect you from developing the serious COVID. Now, the issues of efficacy and the calculations are very complex when I'm so I'm not going to get into how they calculate the efficacy, correct? It's a technical issue. So that's AstraZeneca, that's 70%. Now, AstraZeneca, this is also the complication of the science of it. There are 2 doses. The other dose is 60% efficacious. The other dose is well above 90%. That's also good news. So in other words, the 70% comes from the average. You have a smaller dose, then we have a higher dose. So the higher dose is the one that produces a higher efficacy, well above 90%. But all in all, average is 70%. Now, the prediction was 50% efficacy is good to go. That's what we were expecting. We're expecting 60%, correct? Or even 50%. It was enough to stop the vaccine. But now, as I've said before, it's a victory for humanity because it is 70% above the expectation. That's AstraZeneca. Then you go to America. Now, this one, let me focus on AstraZeneca. AstraZeneca one is, it can be kept at 4 degrees or 8 degrees, right? Meaning it's on a normal fridge, not a freezer, but a normal fridge, right? Where you put your food. So that vaccine can be kept there. And that's good news because as they transport it, you won't need freezers to transport it. You just need normal refrigeration. And in hospitals, there are normal fridges where you keep it. That's one good news. And thirdly, the AstraZeneca one is the one that South Africa is participating in. Blah, I need your feedback.
Yes, they are both.
No, even from the audience, right?
No, but with COVID, once illness will inflict sickness to the next person, how do we draw the line? Which undermines the claim to take the vaccine on voluntary basis. Okay, we'll come back to
no, we are coming there. We are coming to that one. Now we are just dealing with the deeper science of it. Now, AstraZeneca is the one coming to South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
That one is ours because we participated in the research.
If you can just clarify that as the last time I checked, I might have effects I'm wrong. Aspen was going to do something at PE. Is that the relationship or just something that is being done elsewhere in South Africa for Africa?
No. We don't have the capacity to produce a vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
We have the skill, correct?
Uh-huh.
But maybe you might talk of resources. Now, the Aspen could be the AstraZeneca one. They now become the distributors. I don't know. And I've said, what's this fund that we have?
The Presidential Stimulus Fund?
No, there's a name they call where everyone donates.
Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
Solidarity Fund.
Mm-hmm.
Solidarity Fund. They have deposited 300 million to the AstraZeneca vaccine. So they've paid 300 million. This is a sign that we are ready as South Africa to get the vaccine. As soon as it's ready in UK, South Africa will also be one of those who receive it. Now that's AstraZeneca. So we are going to get that one. Now we have two more. These are the ones that excite me now. This is deep into my field, these ones. And I was thinking about it this morning to say, just before lockdown, I was teaching my students on that technology. These ones, it's a new technology that these ones are coming. So you have the Pfizer one. Pfizer is the one that produces Viagra.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they have a vaccine.
Nah.
The Pfizer vaccine.
They talk about the Viagra. What was it? What is it that it was meant for? The side effects, because any the Viagra is side effects. But yeah, we'll come back to that one. You mean?
Let's just be naughty, ne?
Yes.
Kaloku data is a side effect, but the Viagra is for a heart condition.
Yes.
Let's pass there. Yes. Now, Pfizer ne efficacy it's 94.5%. That's extremely high, meaning it guarantees safety. You get that? In other words, of the 44,000 that were injected with the vaccine, very few, you get that, could be infected. So it's not 100%. But at this time, we don't need 100%. We needed 60%. Now, we have then Moderna. Moderna is a small biotech company that no one thought they will succeed. Now, Moderna also produced a vaccine, which they used a messenger RNA technology. Now, I'm going to come back to, but I don't want to touch what the CJ, Chief Justice, said. But there's a video that was circulating, and I need to correct that video. So the Moderna one is 95% efficacious. Now, those two vaccines are safe, very safe. Now, correct two things. On the Pfizer one, there were 4 people who died. Of the 44,000 people, 4 died. Guess what? From the 4 that died, you know what they do? They will have the research subjects, those that they will inject with the vaccine, correct? Say about 24,000. Then they will have what they call placebo group. The placebo group, we put Umla and put uvala up. And then I come with 2 vials of doses, and I say 2, these are vaccines, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Then I take 1 and I inject you, mla, and that's a vaccine. Then on the vial B, I inject uvala, but ngamanzi lapha kuleya. It's tap water. But then both of you don't know. Both of you psychologically, you think you have a vaccine. But mna as a researcher, I know who has a vaccine. You get that? If it happens that both of you get sick the same way, then I know my vaccine is not working. But for the vaccine to work, when I'm lying, you should not get sick. But uvala must get sick. That's how I'm testing.
Are you exposed to the same elements? Are you guys exposed?
Same elements.
You are exposed to the same elements. Okay.
Same.
Okay.
Then we call that one a control, a negative control. So that there is no contamination, there's no mistake.
Okay.
Now, of the 4 people who died, 2 of them were injected with tap water. I don't know if you get me.
Yeah, net.
And then 2 of them were part of those who were injected with the vaccine. So in other words, you can't say these 2 who were injected with water were killed by the vaccine. Then from there, you can also make an inference to say, even the 2 that were injected by the vaccine, they were not killed by the vaccine. They had their pre-existing conditions.
Okay.
So in other words, their death was going to happen.
Take off.
And number 3 or number 4, there is no evidence that links their death to the vaccine.
Okay.
When they do all those biopsy things, there is no link between their death and the vaccine. Plus, you add these 2 who died, yet they were injected with water. There's no way you can say they were killed by the vaccine because they don't have the vaccine.
They don't have. They have
yes. Exactly, but none of those. So those are technicalities of the vaccine development. Now let's come back to the technology. Now, what they do, we call this the central dogma of molecular biology, where your DNA will produce a messenger RNA, and your messenger RNA will produce a protein. Okay. Now, they don't want to infect you with a virus. You understand?
Okay.
What they do a synthetic microRNA or messenger RNA, sorry. That one is synthetic, is synthesized in the lab.
Okay.
So in other words,
deoxy and also reoxy oxytocin.
It's messenger RNA, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, when it infects you, it's different than a virus. Remember, a virus has more than 16 proteins, meaning when it gets into the body, it infects you. All those proteins, they do damage. This one, it's called a spike protein. It is the one that the virus uses to attach itself to your ACE receptors.
Okay.
It attaches itself, then the rest of the virus gets in. So it needs that. With HIV, you have 120 GP. That's the one that attaches itself. But this one, it's a spike protein, which attaches itself to your receptors. So now that synthetic messenger RNA, once it gets into your body, it produces spike proteins of the virus, right? But those spike proteins will not make you sick.
Okay.
But what they will do, they will annoy the immune system. Meaning the immune system will say, no, we don't know these proteins. These are foreign objects. Then amajoni are going to be released to attack these spike proteins. Last time during lockdown, I talked about the B cells.
Yes.
The B cells will see and read these proteins and attach themselves to the spike proteins and then release antibodies. And it's a whole process where you say the T killer cells will also be there that's the process of killing the virus now. What I normally do, I missed it. I normally say, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. All those things, they happen with everybody. They happen naturally, where you have B cells attacking the virus and the T killer cells coming in, and then those B cells producing antibodies. That's the wonderfully and fearfully made. Now, once those antibodies are produced, mainly after 7 days or more, they will remain there for 8 months going forward. Now they are activated. Remember, it's the fake virus that infected you.
Okay.
It's not the real virus. But that fake virus or synthetic one has made your immune system to produce antibodies to be ready. Now, those antibodies are lasting for 8 months or a year or more. That's good news. Now, since they last that long, in your process of moving around, you get infected you get exposed to the virus, right? You get infected by the virus. But then the virus will not make you sick because the antibodies are ready now. They deal with the virus immediately. And as such, you won't get sick. In other words, you can test positive for the virus, but you'll never get sick because amajonom zimba are awake. They deal with the virus immediately and eliminate the virus. So that's how these messenger RNA vaccines are working. They do not touch. Now, this is where the good doctor, I'm told she's an Adventist. She is messed up. Sorry to put it that way. She's a messed up doctor, number one, who doesn't understand this biology. And she needed to be humble and say, I am a clinician.
Okay.
I do not understand how the central dogma works. She needed to say that. But that's a problem sometimes with some arrogant doctors. The title makes them a bit dizzy. But the truth is, she is clueless. She is confused because that synthetic messenger RNA, for that messenger RNA to be affecting your genes, it has to have its own promoter, which promotes it to be expressed. What they do, they put it in fat. So it cannot get into your DNA. By the way, to show that the doctor has messed up, inside the cell, where this thing goes, There's only RNA, no DNA.
Okay.
That's where she's wrong. And I would offer a space in my classes for her to attend. Then I can help her understand the central dogma instead of her confusing the public. It is the messenger RNA. Number two, when you get to that environment of the cell, the body is so protective that it becomes toxic to any genetic material, number one, that is not kept. We call it 5' capping. Number two, we call it 3' tailing. So for a genetic material to survive, it must have a cap and a tail. If there's no cap or tail, the environment within the cell is toxic. It cannot survive. Did you get me? So that messenger RNA in your body cannot be incorporated into your genetic material. It cannot. That's why when it gets inside, the antibodies will attach to it and remove it out of the cell.
Okay.
So there's no way that it changes your genetic material. CJ must come to my classes. I'm also willing to help him. Your genetic material does not change anyhow. It needs a UV light. For you to change, you need to be exposed to a UV light for a certain amount of time. You can't just throw, like for example, we eat animals here with their genetic material, but their genetic material doesn't become part of us. It becomes a waste that is thrown out. So there's no way a vaccine can become part of your gene.
We will come back now. I think how you actually coined the whole discussion, and then conspiracy theory. That's where you are at the moment. Yeah, you took us all the way from science, and then you and took us to the conspiracy theory. Now let's do this. Let's discuss issues now. We've got the science part. We've got the biblical side. Let's bring these things together so that we have a point of reference, all of us. Now, the first
before we get there, I think it's important to touch. I somehow agree with Uvala. But the good news is that no one will be forced to vaccinate. One. Two, and this is good news. We don't need everyone to vaccinate. We don't need everyone to vaccinate. We only need 50% of the population.
Okay.
Once we get 50% or 60%, then that will be the end of the virus. Now, here's the thing. I am vaccinated, correct? I don't care whether the next person to me is vaccinated or not, but I am vaccinated. So let that person who chooses not to be vaccinated exercise their right, but they don't affect me.
Okay.
And secondly, me being vaccinated, I'm also indirectly protecting this person. Because once we get to 50%, we reach what we call herd immunity. Now, herd immunity makes sure that the pathogen has reached a dead end, meaning the virus can only infect one person and it cannot move to the next person.
Okay.
And obviously, the virus will be looking now for people to infect. In the end, it disappears because it has reached a dead end. So in other words, if out of 2 people, 1 is vaccinated, then we let people exercise their freedom of choice. There's no need to enforce it.
Okay, I think they will. Babal, let's come back to you. In terms of the vaccination, yes. You did say, Kuti, there is also a political sort of agenda in this whole thing in terms of pharmaceuticals to drive that particular agenda, pharmaceuticals and everything. What is really?
I can't hear at all.
Come again?
I can't hear at all. And even.
Okay. Can you do us a favor?
My sound is low. I just need to let me go out and come back.
Yeah.
Let me log out and come back.
Okay, cool. ZS, since conspiracy theories asizivile, into yobangaba siza microchipwa so that silekwe ngezinto yonke lento i-mark of the beast, CJ umthandazo wakhe siwuvile. And I mean, kudala zafika i-vaccine sinazo ngoku silapha. Some of us ujwaha usabelo bebonisa nge-anti yakhe. I think it was today or yesterday, I can't remember, on Facebook. Those are all vaccines. I mean, yintoni lento iyenza for this thing to be so difficult during our time, you know, because in our time everything is taken out of science. We are solving scientific problem with biblical solutions, you know. So we are taking scientific problems, seasons, biblical problems. I think this is also the same thing when I said as doctor. The doctors sometimes clinicians, they solve problems abanazo, clinical problems, scientific problems, clinical solution, which it's not going to work. So we've been Windows in Asia. Can you take us through what could be the problem in our time whereby we are taking a vaccine all of a sudden? It's like, hey,
I can't explain that one. It could be psychological. I mean, yeah, I hear the echo. I can't explain that one. For me, that is in the realm of spirituality and psychology. And I'm one person who doesn't like to jump around in areas where I do not feel I have the authority. You get that? So people believe what they want to believe. And sometimes people are gullible. Sometimes, you see, this route that I'm explaining, it might be tough for others to accept, but in some is Kululu's belief. I mean, I can come up with insom in the balis and the hey, ilulungena. But now, if there was an effect as hard, is our 17 on the cool. That's why, if I can tell you my experience, I've learned on social media. In one point, there was a group. Some people thought they are attacking me. Then I said, no, you can't attack Usmai. Right? What I was dealing with, there's a person who was spreading something that you cannot prove from fact. And then I said, no, you are lying. Here are the facts. But what happened is few people were attracted to the facts. The rest were excited because in so military and and ibeka umla kwenye light a bed. Now turns out no, you have missed the facts. It is not true. And then people will be resistant. We know it even from Jesus Christ. They were used to insomiza paparas. When Christ came with the facts, they were like, when I couldn't be cheated. So I'm just saying there is no scientific explanation for that. people just are attracted to different things.
Okay, Babal, would you say because I can feel the sense of resistance, and you are a bit worried about the I'm not sure whether the community there is echo. Can you mute, guys? Yeah, there is a sense of resistance, and also we are hesitate about this particular sort of vaccine that is coming. Would you maybe share with us, Suputi, what are your fears if you got any fears around this particular pandemic, out of everything that has been said around this whole thing, so that we are able to sort of deal with it either scientifically or any other way?
Okay, all right. Maybe I should just since we are Swiss section now that talks about the vaccine. Maybe I should share my fears around the vaccines. Personally, my fears around the vaccines are those antigens which are added in a vaccine. According to my studies, what I've read, I'm not saying it's absolute, but according to what I found, there are 4 main elements that are put in a vaccine. You have an antigen, a stabilizer, preservative, and the other one, adjuvants. So my greatest fear is the first one, the adjuvant. What do you call this? Antigens that are put in a vaccine, which by definition is a weakened form of the virus or the bacteria, which helps to train the body, that is to fight against the future encounters with the virus. So my fear is that's where my fear is. I've also been vaccinated in the past when I was working for this government institution, when I was dealing with water. I was vaccinated. For example, I got a hepatitis vaccination because I was dealing with like the environment in which I was in. It was mandatory that I must be vaccinated. So I was vaccinated 3 times in a row. Every year I'm vaccinated. However, personally, my body was not reacting nicely. I had serious major side effects. So, for example, I'll be blunt, I'll just be clear. For example, blood in the stool, like this, fatigue. It's as if you have that thing. As long as there are symptoms that go with this thing you are vaccinated against, all of that stuff, and this thing will continue for like 3 weeks. And I decided to do some reading on this, and I said, no. I am no longer taking this thing. So those are my fears, because according to my reading, every vaccine has antigens that are put in it. Even this Moderna and Pfizer, even the one from Johnson & Johnson, and the other one, they start with a Z, Zenac, what is that? The one you mentioned earlier. Yeah, that. Yes, that one. So my fear is those antigens that are put in that thing. Yeah. So let me start there with the vaccines. That's my fear. And my second fear, I've already mentioned with this whole COVID thing, is how the powers that the powers that be are going to hijack this. If both in the first place it's not their creation, can be creation in the first place. My fear is for them to use this thing to push their agenda, that is to control ingqondo zabantu, which is just a dress rehearsal for that time when the mark of the beast will be passed. That's my fear. The Sunday movement will hijack this thing. Once they see that iyasebenza lento, then of course they have to create another crisis in future to restrict our liberties, and to introduce this fascism, this authoritarian rule. These are questions I'm having from where I'm sitting. We have a constitution we are in a constitutional democracy, for example. why is it that our liberties are suspended? Why are liberties suspended? Why are we having a autocratic type of governance at this time? I mean, why are you telling the churches? Why are you defining the liturgies of the churches? Why is it that the state is telling us how we must worship God? No baptism, no Holy Communion, no. So I mean, some of the, for example, in the biggest religion or Christian group in the world is the Roman Catholic. For example, in the Roman Catholic Church, the core, the foundation of the church, it's the Eucharist. So now, if you are saying there should not be any, it's the Eucharist. So if you are saying for them, and the Eucharist for them is every Sunday, once you remove that part from Roman Catholicism, I'm just making an example, then you don't have worship at all. Once you remove singing from worship, what are you doing there? There's no worship there. So those are my fears around this. If we allow the state to take our liberties now, how much more in the future?
Okay, I think that if you can mute for us again, Babalo, maybe two things also that are very important. You can capture on those things, but make sure you do capture on these two, which is the antigen, cover that one, and the second one, and the program is a dress rehearsal being used to advance the agenda that is still coming. But this one as a dress rehearsal. So I want you to capture those two nice and clearly for us as you capture other elements of this particular discussion. You are mute, Zote. Yes, you are mute.
No. Sorry, I was saying I'm a fact person. You come to me and ask, I will provide you facts. So that's why I prefer to stick to what is objective. Where if you ask me, where's the data? I give you data, even the raw data. That's why I do not prefer to get into the element of what's this, politics. Now, let me stick to the science of it. Umla is gone. What happens is the science behind these vaccines is excellent.
Sorry to distract you. We actually lost the connection then. We lost you when you were saying data and facts. Can we just rewind? Go back from there and then we move.
No, I was saying I do not like to talk about ifs. I prefer, let's talk about facts. If you say the Bible says this, then let's bring the source, which is the Bible, right? Or you bring science to say, no, the vaccine, the science of the vaccine is this. Here's the data. Like throughout this week, I was reading about the data that is produced from those vaccines. Now, when you talk about data, you talk about reproducibility, meaning can this be repeated in another lab? And the answer is yes. Once it can be repeated in another lab, then that experiment is excellent. Because it means it was not a fluke. It was not by chance. So what happens with this science, and vaccines have been developed before, but the technology has so advanced that now you are even able to check what effect will this virus have on the immune system, and the area you term immunogenicity, meaning you want to check the reaction of the immune system before you issue or before you distribute it. And if you are not happy with the immunogenicity, then you do not issue. That's how the science has progressed. So I'm not going to deny to say he didn't have side effects. There are side effects. For example, on this one, near Pfizer, the side effects are minor. One of them is you feel the pain here on the site of injection, meaning the pain is caused by the injection. That's a side effect. Or you feel a little bit red there. You get that? That's how you react to a needle. But this is just the outside where your tissues are injured, but they take that as a side effect. And another one is, which few who experience that, because when they check the side effects, they don't check how many, they just check which side effects are there. Then they discover fatigue, right? And another one, there was a slight headache. And that's expected. And here's the brilliance of it. The honesty and the openness of the science on this vaccine has been par excellent. Pfizer didn't test the vaccine themselves. They developed the vaccine, then they did the trial, then they said, can you guys, an independent body, can you go and test the vaccine yourselves? Right? Can you
how
now...
independent is that independent body?
Independent body, it's more like they come to you. I don't know if you get me. And the other element which I'm impressed with, there's what is called in America FDA. Now, FDA is very strict. It's more like medicine control in South Africa. You don't distribute a medicine until you get an authorization. Now, the authorization goes through a scientific committee. That scientific committee will look at your data. Those are experts in the area. They look at the data and analyze it and see if you are telling the truth or not. Now, it's an independent assessment of your data. And they can come back and say, no, but you didn't report this side effect. Why didn't you? But this time around with the Pfizer, they say, no, everything is par excellent. Therefore, we are offering an authorization that you can go and distribute the vaccine. So, of course, we're not going to say others are not going to have, say, for example, develop a minor headache. Like if someone takes a medication, they will have, let's say, ARVs. You will develop side effects, correct? But as soon as your body gets used to that, then you are fine. But then here's a trick that I want the public to understand. COVID is deadly, number one. So now, when there's a vaccine and then there's a deadly virus, you have to weigh which one is more important. Getting exposed to the deadly virus or experiencing a minor headache. So you weigh the pros and cons, choose. Do you get me? That's how medicine works. To say, what are the advantages of not being vaccinated in the midst of a deadly virus? What are the advantages of being vaccinated? You say it is protection against the virus. What are the disadvantages? No, I will develop a headache. Now ask the question, so which one do you choose? A headache or the virus? Which one do you go for? Do you get me? So you offer that to the public to say, no, you must choose intelligently. We're not going to come and say, no, there's no side effect or there's nothing. You get that? But you will have to come to a point where you weigh. If you develop a headache, which I don't think a lot of people will, then you must choose to say, okay, I have an HIV virus here. And treatment dibanobunari obutile, correct? Now you have to weigh, do I choose ubunari, then I suppress the virus, or dibaleka ubunari obu because andibuthandi, then the virus isebenza apha emzimbeni? Which one do you go for? So you have to weigh options, right? Now, on the element where he mentioned if it exists, let me help him to say there's no if. There are piles and piles of data to prove that it exists. And I would say this, Nemla, and I need to say it. 2012, I went to America to be trained on genome sequencing platforms, where you look at the genes, you sequence the genes and look at the genes. And I came back. Now, what these guys did, 10 days after they identified the virus, they sequenced the virus to say, this is what we picked up from people who were sick. This is the sequence. Now, you can't create that thing. Now, I was mentioning the fact that I was trained there because I wanted to come to this angle. You can't create that one. It exists as part of nature. Now, the coronavirus is a zoonotic virus. It exists in nature. It is part of nature. And as I said earlier on, during the lockdown, to say, we will have another pandemic, right?
Yes.
Why? Because these viruses are part and parcel of us. Tomorrow, there might be a vaccine which has mutated from dogs, the dogs we sleep with. Are we going to chase away dogs? So these viruses, they live in animals, but they jump from animals to human. They evolve. So we are going to have another pandemic. As long as we live with zoonotic viruses. So we have to come to a point where maybe we seize the idea of thinking that a virus can be created. It cannot be created.
But it can be manipulated.
It exists. It can be manipulated, but it exists as part of nature. You can't create, I don't care how brilliant you are, you can't create a virus from scratch. But you can remove a single base pair. But you can't create 16,000 base pairs and create something that operates in a way that this virus operates. So that I would want the public to understand and accept, to say, you cannot create a virus. It exists. And secondly, I had a friend of mine who said, there's a guy who proved that HIV is not there. He injected himself with blood. And then I asked a question. I said, here's a problem with us. We are gullible, number one. We are not critical thinkers. We don't like to be critical thinkers. Here's a question for you. And I asked my friend, here's a question for you. How do you know that's blood, number one? Because that guy is on a YouTube video. How do you know that is blood? You can't prove that is blood. Two, let's say that is blood. You can't prove that blood has HIV. That person can take a blood of a chicken and inject himself with the blood of a chicken and say, you see, I'm injecting myself. I am never going to be HIV negative. So these are things that we need to be careful of, especially in the age of technology, where videos are all over. A video is not proof.
Yeah.
Right? But then I don't want to come there. There's an element I wanted to bring. Yes, before. This is what I wanted to present on my live video. I got a video and I have it on my phone. People who think they are smart when actually they are not smart. You see, sometimes you ask a question and you are convinced that, yeah, no, I'm clever. This is a brilliant question. And then someone who's knowledgeable would be like, I can't believe you are asking such a question. Had you read 1, 2, 3, you wouldn't be asking that question. But then someone goes on social media and records to ask a question where if they could have taken few hours to read, they would not be asking that question. This guy goes like to say, now tell me, we haven't produced HIV vaccine in 25 years. And then with flu, we took 18 months and we're still struggling. And then you tell me this one, we took 8 months. Does that make sense? Let me answer the question.
Because that was going to be my question. I'm glad you're going to capture that.
Let me answer that question to say, one, that question comes from someone who doesn't understand how viruses work. Two, who thinks HIV is equal to flu, is equal to coronavirus.
Equal to cancer.
HIV, one. That virus is one of the trickiest viruses. You research it today or this week, plan it. Next month, the virus has mutated. It's a completely different virus. So how do you come with a vaccine with such a virus? It's tough, right? So that's why it's taking 25 years, because the virus itself is easy to mutate and change itself. This one, coronavirus, is very stable. It takes a long time to mutate. It is stable. So these two viruses are not the same. And thirdly, the technology affords us to, and I think this one is very important, the element of stability. And flu virus, there are hundreds of strains, different strains. You can get a vaccine when I'm like today of flu, right? But then you go out, you get infected with a different strain of the same virus. So flu virus has different strains. That's why always there's something, you get me? Another, for example, as it 2009, there was H1N1. It's a flu, but it has changed. It's a different strain. Then you come up with a vaccine for that one. Then in the next 2 or 3 years, it changes. It becomes a new strain. Oh, you bet. So you can't compare the three viruses. HIV is different from coronavirus. Influenza virus is different from a coronavirus. And these three operate differently. HIV has CCR receptors. A coronavirus has ACE2 receptors. That should tell you that they operate differently, and one is sexually transmitted, the other one is respiratory. So they are different. Yes, flu and coronavirus are respiratory viruses, but they don't belong to the same family. It's completely different families. Now, in closing, there was a comment on my Facebook to say it's a normal flu. And let me appeal to the public. Stop saying that, right? Stop saying that, because some people have lost friends, they have lost relatives, and they've lost loved ones. And even myself, there's a friend of mine who just died. You get that? Because this is a respiratory virus, it produces the same symptoms as flu-like symptoms. It is not flu, it is flu-like symptoms. I don't know if that is clearer. Mla. We've lost Mla. Mlamli. I need his feedback. So I was saying, it is not a flu, because flu is caused by influenza. But coronavirus is a respiratory virus, and therefore it produces, I doubt if we are still live. He's gone.
Yeah, I think it disappeared.
Would we be live then if he's gone?
I'm sure, because there's an audience that is currently watching. I
Is
think
he
you
not
can
connected
continue,
to
my
him?
lead.
But yeah, no, it's fine. We'll hear from him in case they are listening. So I was saying,
Okay.
Yeah, you can mute.
Okay.
I was saying, it is not a normal flu, but it is a respiratory virus, meaning it's the same as the influenza virus. They are both respiratory viruses. One causes flu, which is influenza, while the coronavirus causes flu or produces flu-like symptoms, but it goes beyond those symptoms because it can cause blood clotting, which now eventually leads to a heart attack. I think he's coming back now. La, Will.
Yeah, sorry, I think at this time, because everyone is online, so it's in network jammed. Maybe what we can do, ZS and Babalo, maybe if we can just do our parting shots, and then maybe allow Babalo to come up with the parting shot. ZS has actually responded to almost everything that you've actually. We'll spend another time, another day. We'll hear from Abandu. And also ZS, maybe when you're doing your parting shot, can you just maybe let us know, Kuti, last time we checked was that there is immunity when you've actually been exposed to the virus. Possibly, what's the current status? Is it still the same immunity? And if it's there, how long one gets immune after being exposed to the virus? Babalo, your parting shots? You are muted.
Oh, okay. I was saying that I couldn't hear everything you were saying, my lady. But I just heard you saying a parting shot, but I couldn't hear everything you were saying. Sure. My parting shot, it's my appeal to Christians, those who call themselves Seventh-day Adventists. I believe we are living in that time where Matthew says the beginning of sorrows. This pandemic, this coronavirus, and every other current event that is currently taking place are just warning signs to show us that we are living in that time of difficulty. It is now that we need to arise and shine. So I just want to share something here as my parting shot to Adventists. What is it that you should be doing right now? I think I should say that if you read Acts of the Apostles, chapter 1, page 1, paragraph 1, we are told that the church is God's appointed agency for the salvation of men. It was appointed for service. So the primary function or the focus of the church is its mission. Now, the mission is the driver and sustainer of the spiritual and social well-being of the church. When the mission is in place, it means we are alive as a church. But now, if the mission is forsaken, it means we are a dead church. In fact, we are finding that in great controversy as well, that the Spirit of Christ was a missionary spirit. The very first impulse of a renewed heart is to win others to Jesus Christ. So the evidence or the proofs of a Christian that is alive, it is a Christian that is busy sharing the love of God to fellow mankind. Now, I mentioned earlier, this is my parting shot, that the mission is the driver and sustainer of the church. Now, I believe the time we are in, God had to disrupt our services weekly. All the services we were having, God had to disrupt that so that we can go back to the blueprint. And this is what the blueprint is, according to what I've read so far. I believe that currently the operational systems we are using today to run our churches, they are not favorable for missionary work, for mission work, for our mission. For example, look at the Sabbath school, for example. Just make an example. Sabbath school by design originally was put in place so that it can be a missionary school, missionary center. Number two, our church buildings, most of the time, we are using them only on Wednesday and Friday, Wednesday and sometimes Wednesday and Saturday. What is happening on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday? We have a blueprint of running churches. So my appeal is, let us rethink our church operations, church planting strategies by building or running centers of influence instead of the current status quo. I believe this is a time that we need to rethink and look at our impact in society. I mean, there's a beautiful model we are given here. If you read in our not in my writings, in our writings of beehive churches. Churches are supposed to operate as community service centers 24/7. The beehive church, we call them beehive churches, where there is activity. We are servicing the community from Monday to Monday on a daily basis. So in short, that is what I would as long as we are going to, in other words, should we go back to church? We should use this to go back to our blueprint.
Okay. Thank you. Can you just mute now? Yes. Thank you, Babalo. I think Babalo is coming up with quite a challenge there for us to be relevant in our society. So that abantu mhlawumbe inkonzo zethu ZS will abantu bestart to help us to ukubulala umlilo, because this church is relevant to their social ills, is relevant to their social needs and everything. So I mean, the pandemic, we were all caught by surprise, because if you look at it now, if the government used our churches as quarantine centers, you know, they lack quarantine centers. They didn't have and you know what we did was to close our churches. I'm glad that is coming and it's clear, so that from Sunday to Sunday, or from Monday till Sunday, or Saturday till Saturday, we know our churches are relevant to the needs of our society. And this particular pandemic is actually speaking to that. Okay, we found one thing. Now, how do we move forward as a church, making sure this is not only relevant to the SDA church, not relevant to the Catholic church, not relevant to the any other church, but every church building is supposed to come and be able to serve the needs of the community. Zolani, your parting shots.
No, thanks, Mla. There's an element which you said I must address. Now, again, going back to what I've always preached throughout the pandemic, there's no reason to panic. All we do what we did right or correct. Continue with what we're doing. And we must be careful of COVID fatigue, where now you are used to every time you come from the mall, you wash your hands. Let it be a habit. Don't be fatigued of that. And keep that social distancing. And actually the masks, we must make sure that we stick to that. Now, coming back to this one of, now at some point I did mention there's natural immunity, there's induced or superhuman immunity. Now the superhuman is the one that comes with the vaccine. Then the natural immunity is the one that you develop after you got infected. Now the superhuman immunity has been researched and has been tested on rats, monkeys, and thousands of humans. It lasts from 8 months upwards, right? That's the vaccine one. With the natural one, it should last for months also. Do you get me? It should be able to last for months. So again, we are still going back to what we said. If you were infected, there is also no need to panic of getting the virus again, because the issue of reinfection is super rare. There is one case which is now credible of reinfection, but it is rare. You get me? So it means that people do not need to panic. It means that your immunity or amajoni omzimba asamile, right? Asajongene virus there. Now, I normally say when I talk, there are outliers. Outliers is where out of million people, there's just one individual who understand? So even with this case of reinfection, that's an outlier. It is not a norm, because it is not supposed to happen based on how virus immunity works. So people who have been infected and they recovered, they are still safe. And two, they don't need to panic. But it doesn't mean that they must be careless. You get me?
Okay.
But at the same time, it tells them to say, look, there's no need to panic. Continue to live your life. If you were careful, continue to be that careful. Correct. I'm not going to say don't wear mask, no, because we must all wear masks, understand? So now let me close by saying, I said earlier during the pandemic, because normally vaccine development takes 18 months. I said we might get the vaccine or we might go back to normal in December 2021. We might get our vaccine then. But that was assuming that the vaccine will go the normal route. And I must say that I am also caught by surprise by the technology. The pace at which it runs, it catches almost everyone by surprise. And I must promise, I'm going to put a picture on my Facebook showing the timelines from the day of the first patient to the day of the first patient of being infected by virus, to the day of the first patient to be injected. That's a miracle, or should we say a miracle, or an amazing work done by humanity. For me, it excites me because this thing was, the data was submitted last week around Wednesday. By Friday, they had analyzed the data and they said by Monday, there will be a first batch of 2.9 doses. And it was done. And they came back to say by March, we will be able to vaccinate 100 million people. That's extraordinary. Once they do that, it means then America is safe. Now they will open up for other countries, and South Africa is already waiting on the line to say, give us your vaccine. Now, on the AstraZeneca one, we will get it, I believe, before Easter. Though I'm not talking from fact, but that's just my prediction, you understand? Because of the way things are running so fast. And make no mistake, when they run fast, it does not mean quality is compromised. No, quality is top notch, is still there, top class quality. So I'm saying by next year, we might get our own first batch of the vaccine. But the trick now would be, it will start with the healthcare workers, the nurses, the doctors, people who work with patients. It will start with them, because those are people who are in the firing line of the virus, who might catch it and bring it home. So if they are safe, it also means there's some element of safety. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And now as it is, ngabantu ongathanda uzimenshini radiographers and radiographers bethuna nazo mazifakwe zizawube
the health workers. So zonas, they belong to health workers.
Asifuna babo etc. Njalo njalo masibizwe nathi lethuna njengenesi kunye no doctor babisiwe nabo. Then ke ngoku emveni koko uthi njalo njalo. Thank you guys. I really wanna thank you, Babalo Vala, an evangelist. You can follow him on his pages. Babalo Vala on Facebook. More especially, normally goes live on Saturdays. Evangelist campaigns. If you need to answer any questions, or you want him to invite him to come and do talks for Wena, Babalo Vala, check him on Facebook. Normally he's live on Saturdays. We will also try and hijack him next year, maybe to deal with other issues, quite a number of issues, maybe the Sabbath. Look at it, what is it? We normally have Babalo more than 100K people that we normally reach through our channels and everything like that. And then possibly we invite you and sort of we address other issues. And then ZSK is our resident scientist. It's always there and always available. And it's December now. He's here to actually give that information to us. And I'm glad that he still maintains. Don't be negligent, guys. As much as Bangaba, you might think, would you have this thing just like Tina? But still, please try and be careful. Protect yourself and also protect others. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Sabulela, they enjoyed you guys. They call it the scary hour. Abanye said you pandemic usually have a second wave of illness on the other. As we all lead up, the Buza is back on the pandemics by the second wave now. We'll address all these things as time goes by. So guys, you were live today with YouTube channel Blamdi Mangala. You are also live today on my page, not on my profile, on my personal profile, but my Facebook page, which is Mlamli Mangala. So I suggest and also urge everyone to like my YouTube page, Mlamli Mangala, like my Facebook page, Mlamli Mangala. Zolani Simai is always there giving information, scientific evidence and everything true. Page profile page, because I'm sure as soon as the color page, we should be getting to more than 100K people. So from tonight on, possibly next time, you will send us straight to your page. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. And most.
Thank you.